make sure I'm talking to the right group of people. Let me ask you a few questions to start with. Seriously, how many of you would like to make a lot more money? Second question, how many of you feel you have the ability to do just that? Here's a tougher question. How long have you known that? Well, I was introduced as a motivational speaker, and I think if you have to get your motivation from somebody outside of your own self, you have a problem. Because today it's more sharing ideas that change behavior. If you change your attitude because you take on a new idea, if it activates a new performance on your part, life not only becomes more productive, it becomes more interesting as well as you grow. Because you'll never grow beyond what your personal growth and development happens to be, and that relates to your business certainly as well. So they say, there's a cliche that says, if you want to duplicate success, if you want to create success, all you have to do is duplicate what's already out there. The systems are there, the answers are there, everybody's been down that road before, and with little variations here or there, if you just do what other successful people have done in so many different areas, you end up having the same kinds of results. And it's not really true, because the ideas of stress and pressure and the sense of overwhelm, basic fears, pain, these are distractions. And distractions take us away from the focus that was once important. When you get distracted enough, habits are hard dying. They become ingrained. We do things that are easy rather than doing things that are right. There is no stress, there is no pressure, there is no sense of overwhelm in the world. When you really look at it, the world is what the world is, and the world does what the world does. But how we perceive those things through our filtration system, how we allow them to enter us and to act upon us, that's really the makeup of a character of an individual. Jean Piaget was a very noted and quoted Swiss behavioral psychologist, and he worked with a lot of kids, lots of thousands of people. And in his studies, the bottom line, one of his bottom lines is that by the time an individual becomes 14 years of age, we've already literally amassed 85% of the habits and the attitudes that we'll have in an entire lifetime of growth and development. Now, we don't know sophisticated things about economics, transportation, finance, etc. But by the time we're 15, we pretty much know whether we're winners or losers. We take on the attitudes of the people around us. We pretty much know whether we're good learners or not such good learners, fast readers, slow readers. A lot of those behavioral patterns are set very deeply. And upon those ingrained levels and layers, we heap other things. And we keep doing things over and over again, obviously the definition of insanity. So you find that in life itself, approximately, most of the population will die about the age, 78, 79, but the gerontologists say that if you give up the smoking, you moderate your drinking, you eat appropriately, and you exercise with some kind of consistency, the average person will live 20 years longer, and not just longer, but improving the quality of life, bottom line, involvement opportunities. Your memory doesn't go downhill at a certain age. It goes down because of dysfunctions and disengagements, but even memory can improve. We find that about 70% of the population in this country anyway don't sleep well at night because they're carrying around burdens that interrupt what's going on. Would you like me to?
Your hand. Oh, no.
A little bit closer?
No,
Is
your
that-
hands.
My hand?
Yeah, there.
Oh, okay. I've never had that stage direction before. Thankful for it. But even people who don't sleep well at night, and those are insomniacs who are not just people who can't fall asleep, but lots of insomniacs are measured by people who wake up at least 1 or 2 times or more per night. How many of you guys do that? And when you do that, you interrupt REM sleep at night, which is about 20% of your night's sleep. Not only do you cut back on the endorphins, which regenerate and restore within your system, but also brain chemicals such as serotonin, which hold back the learning of what you've done that day and a lifetime. So lots of people who just don't function well in making decisions and changing habits, attitudes, has a lot to do with poor sleep patterns. When we find smoking and drugs, people looking for love in all the wrong places, misplaced aggressions and hostilities, By the way, do you know what it means when they raise the flag at the post office? You know what that means? It means they're hiring. It's just a bad joke. Anyway, but postal humor is not a bad joke, and it is sane enough to be in the dictionary, as well as road rage. And these are things that we just kind of talk about kind of flippantly, you know, kind of easily. Even in terms of sexual dysfunctions. Show of hands. It's very early, I understand. But even in terms of sexual dysfunctions, we find that the research, if you get past the silliness of it, is literally 90 to 95% in the brain, not any other part of the body, but in a quick fix, immediate gratification, silver bullet kind of society. We find that people take shots, they take pills, and eventually there's a slippery slope because all these things add up, and they're generally adding up on the negative side of the ledger. In business, the same kinds of things hold true in that stresses and pressures affect how we function in the course of the day, the decisions that we make to use our time, our resources. Most negative stresses will come from fears. There are two fears we're all born with. You know what they are?
Death.
No, not death. Little baby, little infant, doesn't have a concept of death. The fear of falling and the fear of loud noise are the only two innate fears. They're born into every human being who has ever been born. The corollary to that is that every other fear that you can think of, either seriously or humorously, is a learned and accepted experience. Now, we don't want to be freaked out about high places or low places or about lawyers or about, you know, whatever the fear may happen to be. But either at a conscious or at a subconscious level, we recognize that this has taken root within our brain, we allow it to stay there, and these things infiltrate and affect the decisions that we make. In business, very basic fears are obvious. Fears of rejection. If you don't do the numbers, you know, they say massive output is based on massive input. And in the beginning, whether it was 30 days ago or more than 30 years ago in real estate for you, they told you you were going to get rejected a lot more than you were going to get accepted. And you signed on for that because the prize looked so tasty. But after you get worn on time and time again, sometimes that kind of discomfort turns us away, and we end up losing a great deal of time doing minutiae, doing things that don't really matter. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fears of success. People sabotage themselves all the time, and certainly the fear of change, just the fear of change, not wanting more information. As a case in point, how many of you know about the way you eat, the way you exercise, or maybe don't? How many of you know two little things that if you did those things over the next 6 months, those two things would make you healthier and give you more energy? How many of you know two things? Okay? You don't have to have another subscription to a physical fitness magazine. You don't have to have that instructor knock on your door at 6 o'clock in the morning and say, follow me on a 12-mile run through your neighborhood. You have to do those two things that probably popped into your head. And the same thing about your business, the same question over the next 6 months, and don't raise your hand because it's a rhetorical question. How many of you know two things that if you did those things with greater consistency, not even spending any more money in advertising or anything else, two things that would make a difference? You probably know yourself well enough that you could do those two things and know they would make a difference. But knowing and doing are two totally separate situations. Talk is cheap and beer costs money. It doesn't matter how much you know about a situation, but it's in the doing. Well, most of us understand that you have to knock on doors, you have to give reasonable presentations and close assertively, build your book of business, learn your scripts, do all that fluent stuff, save for the future. We know those things. So instead of going over those things, I want to share with you 5 ideas that really can be game changers. Now, not everybody in this room is looking to make a whole gazillion dollars. Some of you are looking to just stay involved, to make a few dollars here and there, to take the burden off the lifestyle that you like to have, an extra vacation here or there. I get that. But if you want to do things a little bit differently, and the way that you get ahead and stimulate your brain is by doing things that are not just ordinary and comfortable. So here's some things, 5 things, and maybe you do them. But if you do them with consistency, I think you'll find dramatic results. I've been a coach, I've worked with thousands of people, I've taught thousands of seminars, literally, over the past 42 years with realtors. And when we get into an intimate conversation, The feedback that I get generates these 5 ideas that are, for me, dominant. Number 1, in the midst of your business and your life, do at least 30 to 45 minutes of personal development and growth every single day. Read some books, listen to tapes, but when you do it with a pad nearby and a pen that works. Somebody who has done their homework, somebody who has a passion, somebody who has a perspective deserves to be listened to, not just like a piece of fiction, a novel, but of something serious. It may not be something you agree with or something that you bring into your lifestyle, but at least listen with an open mind. With my 2 daughters coming through puppyhood, on through school and post-grad and all that stuff, the concept that we gave them early on that allowed them to learn when things looked obvious, you never pay attention to the 3 words, I know that. When you hear that going on in your head, get past it and refocus. Because the 57th time that you listen to something may be the tipping point that makes a difference for you that you literally take in and start using. So whether it's old books like Think and Grow Rich and Psycho-Cybernetics, or Gladwell's books, or whether it's the new age kind of neuroscience, and I don't mean new age in a touchy-feely way. Science is corroborating that if you impact your brain cells with consistency, brain cells that fire together, wire together. You start changing the way you think about things, that influences your performance in the course of a day. I would strongly suggest 30 to 45 minutes. You can't pick up a bad book. If you pick up a book and you've read that book, or at least 50 or 100 pages into it, and it's really not floating your boat, it's really not doing it for you, you can always put it down, but you'll find at least one idea that's operational that you can use. Another concept is, number 2 for me anyway, is that we take so many things for granted in the course of the day. And we have eye contact and we smile and we have the little pleasantries in the course of the day. We come to meetings and everybody shakes hands and everybody is happy. But in many cases, when we're not doing the job in life, whether it's parenting, whether it's spousal, whether it's business, that we really feel we could be doing and we're not getting the joys out of life, sometimes what we have a tendency of doing is focusing on the negative to neutral. I suggest that you put together a gratitude journal as you go to sleep at night. When you write down 3 to 5 things that you're grateful for from that day, not just carrying things over day by day by day by day, but you may have to search. Some days may be really, really tough. That's what challenges you to be more of the person. Was it the eye contact that you gave to somebody whose head was down, their body language negative, and you just kind of uplifted them with a smile? That matters. It matters. It's sharing. It's giving. And when you give, you get. But you don't have to look for the getting. It could be solving a person's problem. It could be doing a gazillion things during the day. Just find 3, 4 of those things before you go to sleep at night. And when you've written them down, not just kept them in your head, you will sleep better, you will wake up more refreshed, because it all comes together, it's all connected. A third thing, especially for those that really want to look ahead and grow their businesses, or on the other side of that pendulum swing, if you feel really stuck, get a coach. I'm a coach. Don't get me. Doesn't have to cost you a nickel. I'm not talking about spending money. Some people's mind goes to, what does it cost? The question should be, what is the value? Nothing is expensive. You can spend $2,500 on an idea, and if the idea is a world changer for you, you have made a great investment. If you spend $5 on a trinket that doesn't work for you, that's an expense, and you don't need to do that. But when you're getting a coach, it could be somebody in your office, but somebody detached enough from you who will tell you the truth. You don't need a cheerleader, somebody to rah-rah you on and give you a pat on the back, but somebody who maybe at the end of the week will listen to the numbers that you said you were going to do in the previous coaching session with them. And you can give all the explanations and excuses in the world, but you know what? You don't have to be tough, you don't have to be strong, you just have to be a listener. Because when a person speaks their own truth, and the truth is not what they had anticipated, and they've fallen short, and it's because of them. 95% of it is that way. Just because they know they're going to meet with you or you with them the next week, they'll want to tell a better story, won't they? They'll want to do something that they're more proud of saying. So get a coach, get an accountability buddy. You show up at the gym once every year at 24-hour fitness just to pay the bill, and you never show up other than that. Find somebody else with the same dilemma who will be an accountability buddy. It's important. Here's what's important also. Number 4 for me, put together a killer to-do list before you go to sleep at night. Don't have your day in jeopardy or in chaos the following day, because bright, shiny things distract everybody. And there are so many of them on the computer, on the phone, walking down the street. There's so many things that take us away from our main focus and the thing that will bring the higher good. Write down everything you're going to do the following day, in business and in personal. Prioritize them A, B, and C. Put it on a piece of paper, not on a computer, because you can fold it down, take a pen with you, and when you're doing those things in the course of the day, and this is important, cross them off. It is far more important than the thing that you are doing, but the sense of gratification that you get, the closure that you experience from having done something worthwhile is really important. This goes down to the core of your self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, your sense of confidence, how you feel and how you see yourself and how you project yourself to people around you. Here's point number 5 for me. I've been dealing with this before I got involved with business. I played semi-pro baseball. A coach gave us some information that he got from a coach's seminar, and he said, I'm going to hypnotize you. I was 19 years old at the time. We said, you got to be nuts. This is crazy, crazy stuff. He said, let me make it real simple. I have the paychecks in my pocket. You can take a seat and listen, or you can take a hike, and I'll replace you with people who want to listen. Woo, he sat down. He had the power. And he made us go through this nonsensical relaxation and positive imagery of striding into the ball, transferring the weight. And I'll tell you, as a catalyst for change, the things that he was going through in this imagery session, and I'm not dazzling you with my fancy footwork, you've been very much aware of these kinds of concepts. But in a month's period of time, the team batting average went up 10 points, and it made a dramatic difference in everybody's game. Today, you would be hard-pressed to find a professional athlete or top-ranked amateur who is not as psychologically tuned as they are physiologically tuned. There's too much at stake. There's too much on the bottom line. Today, if you read what I think are some of the better motivational works, and you can't pick up a bad one of these, it's neuroscience. Neuroscience is mind mapping. It's been over 100 years worth of scientific evolution. And they talk about brain plasticity. Brain plasticity has to do with exercising portions of the brain that you don't normally exercise, because what you do in that case is you're actually increasing the number of brain cells. That's a good thing. You're also improving the quality with which these brain cells function. That's a very good thing. So when you exercise the brain and the brain is working better, we have people like Dr. Daniel Amen. Some of you have seen him on television. He's advertised a lot of places. He's a big neuroscientist. And his basic way of putting forth what I'm saying right now in a synopsis form is that if you exercise the brain, it becomes younger. We don't grow old. We allow ourselves to by disengaging. If you stay involved doing push-ups and sit-ups and walking, those muscles that are engaged work. Your brain works like a muscle in the exact same way, that the more you use it, the better functionality you get, which means you make better decisions and faster. You can change habits and attitudes easier because you're more adept mentally and psychologically. Everything that's good within a person becomes even better if you pay attention to these things. This is not a frivolous kind of, just lay it out there. I really hope you take that last one very seriously, because the brain cells that fire together wire together. How long does it take to change an attitude or a habit pattern? What have you heard? You hear about 3 weeks, 21 days. That comes from the book Maxwell Maltz wrote, Psycho-Cybernetics. You hear 30 days. You've never heard 2 years. Here's how long it takes to change a habit. That quick. That quick. Because if you choose this to eat instead of this to eat, you've broken an existing poor eating habit if you had one. If instead of picking up a cigarette, you did something else, for the moment you have broken that habit pattern. If you continue to make those same decisions, and these are just a continuous system of making better choices, what happens is you break a habit pattern. So for anywhere from 0 to maybe 2 or 3 neuroscientists talk about 66 days to change an attitude or a habit pattern. Some habits will never change. They won't change because the perceived value down the road doesn't seem worth the aggravation to get there. I'll tell you, if you use self-hypnosis, and that's what I've just talked about, relaxation, guided imagery, put those two together. You do that anyway. You project what a listing presentation is going to look like. You basically know what the property is about. You know if you're going to talk to 1 or 2 people or a whole gang of people. You plan your day by the visualizations. How you get dressed in the morning has to do with how you are visualizing and planning your day. This is not strange stuff. But when you literally make a list of anywhere from maybe 5 to 10 real specific goals, you want to be more assertive, write that down on your list. You want to close more assertively, you want to save 20% from every paycheck, you want to go to the gym and be on the elliptical machine for at least 45 minutes 4 times a week, write all of those things down, read your list over before you go to sleep at night. You don't need a lot of tutelage, whatever the right word is, to do these things. But of course there are sources, I'm one, but there's a world filled with good information that backs this up. Read your list over, put it aside, and then relax. There's no one way to relax. You might count 10 deep breaths. You might go through a passive scene. There are systems of relaxation. You've probably encountered 1 or more in your lifetime so far. Do something that suits you, something that's comfortable, something that you will do on a consistent basis. And when you've relaxed, instead of asking yourself questions and diluting the effectiveness of the relaxation by asking yourself, am I deep enough, am I relaxed enough, hell, am I doing anything at all? All I'm doing is talking to myself? Yes, but you're talking to yourself in the best, most meaningful way it's possible. Use your words. We tell that to kids when they don't, when they're just, all about themselves. If you use your words and tell your brain what you want, your brain listens to the articulation of those words because the words create pictures. So once you're relaxed, you repeat the suggestion to yourself, such as, I talk to at least 20 new people about my business every day, for example, and then go into the imagery of it. How do you talk to 20 people? Do you knock on doors? Is it referrals? Is it a networking group? Where do you come in contact with people? Just see it, but see the positive end result. Eye contact, body language, posture, smiling, communication, information coming to you. You're writing it down. You're putting them in your database. You're contacting them as a result of your newsletter. See the end result of it. See yourself exercising. If you don't think that thoughts are things, think again. You become what you think about. Is there any question about that? My mom had a question about that. She was at a conference where I was speaking. It was like a ton of people. And she said afterwards, Sonny, let me tell you, you said you become what you think about, and if that were totally true, you'd have been a girl before you were 14 years old. But basically, you know what I'm talking about. You know. You become what you think about. So I would strongly suggest that you stick with a list. You can always change the list, but literally use that list as a list of goals. Goals are gauges. And in most seminars that are any kind of worth it in personal development these days, they talk about 2 words that are important. One is mindset, which is what I just really kind of talked about. How you change an attitude is you give your brain the option. What do you want instead? Forget about the backstory. Forget about how long you have been that way. Forget about how you have suffered and why and who did it to you. That doesn't matter. That's called history. If you want a better present and future, Peter Drucker, who was a well-known writer, author, just a brilliant guy, said that the best way to predict the future is to plan it. And the art of goal setting is the planning of one's future. If you plan your goals and put them into your subconscious in these relaxed sessions, you're literally burning brain cells, neuron cells, and those brain cells literally matter, because every day you're going to be prompted to make better and better decisions.